Welcome to Law Syrup, the show where we talk with special guests about hot topics in Canadian law. This podcast is a co-production with the Ontario Justice Education Network, also known as OJEN. I'm your host, Herman Wong. Let's tap in. Before we begin, please know that this show is not intended to be legal advice or a replacement for a legal representative. Summer's now over and students are back in class, and what better way to start the school year off than an episode featuring just students? On today's show, I speak with Zainab, Jal, and Marwa. They are the first, second, and third place winners of OJEN's 2024 Social Change Essay Contest. Together, we chat about what inspired them, why they decided to take law in high school, and why they think other students should do the same. Here's our conversation.
Hi, my name is Joel, and I'm in grade 11.
My name is Marwa, and I'm in grade 11 as well.
My name is Zainab, and I'm in grade 12.
So you are all here today because you participated in the OJEN essay contest. But I want to go back to when you first got interested into the law. And it's very interesting because, a lot of the people who listen to this show are high school students, but we've never actually had high school students featured on the show before. So I think this is a very exciting opportunity for you guys to share your interests, what drew you to the law, as well as, what you might think of doing in terms of a career after high school. So how about we start off with our first question, which is, what was your first exposure to the law, or what made you decide to take a course in law in high school? So Zainab, how about we go to you first?
So my first exposure to the law was probably in like grade 8. So at the time we were like in the middle of COVID, and so I had a ton of free time on my hands. And somehow I found myself on like the political commentary side of YouTube. And so I kind of fell into that rabbit hole. And then from there, I realized how closely related politics and law are and how they like impact our daily life. And so that became a really big interest of mine, and that's honestly stuck with me since then.
That's great. How about you, Marwa?
Honestly, I can't remember anything that specifically sparked my interest. I know I've always loved like English and all kinds of social topics, and I think that's what extended my liking into law and politics. I'm pretty sure I first started really liking law through like Criminal Minds probably, but that obviously expanded into true research and actually finding a passion for this subject. I took the course because I found that I really wanted to study law in the future. And it was my first chance to actually learn about law in a class setting because there's reading about it and researching. And then there's also being in a class and being able to share your interest with other people and learn about it. And it's been my favorite class I've ever taken.
Well, that's great. And you, Joel?
Well, law is all over the media, and especially in Bollywood movies. So, like, there are like whole movies, like whole movies about a lawyer fighting a case. And while like watching those movies, I always thought it would be so much fun to be a lawyer. And I
Mhm.
heard that in the law class there are like mock trials, which are exactly like the trials in the movie. So, like, that made me want to really take law.
Okay, well, that's exciting. Are any of you like interested in like the sciences? Because I know I wasn't.
Oh, I love science.
Yes, I specifically really love like psychology and neurology, like how
Oh
the
my
brain works.
gosh, that's really
Yeah.
I love
intense.
neurology.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I took grade 9 and 10 science because it was mandatory. And originally I was like,
Same.
oh, I'm totally going to be a doctor, right? I wanted to be a surgeon. And then I
Wow.
took physics and it was like an optics course, and I'm like, this is like really beyond my knowledge. So kudos to all of you for being very good and interested in science because I was not. But anyways, we're here to talk about the law. So how about we talk about why you like learning about the law and what do you find challenging in terms of learning about all the different topics that come under this umbrella? How about you, Jal? How about you go first?
But I really love that there's no one answer in law, and it's like all about your perspective, and it adds a lot of layers, and that makes law really interesting to me. But that also makes it really difficult, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because most of the time, there's like a lot of gray area in law, like infamously with like abortion, where the law can be interpreted to show abortion as like a form of murder, but other times like a humane practice. So it's like really hard to always know what's morally right.
Right. How about you, Marwa?
Um, That's a hard one because there's definitely a lot of answers to both. And I really agree with Joel because one thing I like is how many perspectives it involves. Like law connects to so many different subjects, and as a result, a lot of ways of thinking. I personally find that law is dynamic, and so our way of understanding or looking at it also has to be. And
Hmm.
what's interesting is that, again, that's also why it's challenging because you're forced to have more than one perspective and see law in a bunch of different ways.
Right. And you, Zainab?
What I enjoy learning most about the law is probably how it like practically affects our societies. And like I think that's like important to consider is like how the laws of an area would like affect the people who live there. But that said, one of the more like challenging aspects for me has been learning to analyze cases from like different perspectives and understanding that like law is not always black and white and there's like so much nuance.
Hmm.
And there's a lot that can like vary depending on circumstances. And while I kind of enjoy that complexity overall, it can definitely be like tricky to figure out that at times.
Right. So, in terms of learning about the law, I know we mentioned, Criminal Minds. We mentioned law in Bollywood movies. Did anything shock you when you took your law class and you were like, wow, I didn't know this thing was actually a part of the legal system we have here in Canada? Marwa, how about we go to you first?
I'm trying to think here. I don't know if anything specifically shocked me, but I do know that one thing that surprised me or that I found challenging is that I feel like it can be very vague, for a subject that's so wordy. I feel like there's some things that, like, there's, again, because there's no one answer, I feel like sometimes politicians or the government can kind of take advantage of that. So, again, like abortion laws, you have laws like that that are very very hard to understand. Like you can read between the lines, and obviously that probably has to do with how the law can be open to change, but that can make it really hard to understand and, form an opinion on some things.
And how about you, Joel? What surprised you?
So, particularly in Canadian law, what really surprised me was like the notwithstanding clause and how like the government can choose to completely ignore the charter for 5 years. So that was really cool. But if you're not talking about Canadian law, what surprised me the most is that humans have been using a legal system for like thousands of years.
Right.
And even then, they always had like a modern and equitable way of thinking. Like, for example, if you look at like the Code of Hammurabi, it's like a form of law from Babylon, and it was discovered in 1750 BC, pretty sure. One of the laws is that if a man kills a pregnant woman, instead of killing the man, they actually kill his daughter, which is like one of the best way to directly punish the man. So I found that really interesting.
I think I saw the Code of Hammurabi when I was in Paris last year. I think it's in the Louvre Museum.
Yeah, yeah, it's in the
And
Louvre.
I was
I
like,
saw it.
I remember learning about this in my grade 11 law class, and I saw it in real life last year. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is really bringing me back to those days. But I mean, what's included in there is pretty horrifying. Um, but Zainab, how about you? What surprised you when you first started to learn about the law?
Honestly, like Marwa said, like there wasn't one thing where I was like, oh, like that's surprising that it's in Canadian law. But I think like a broader like thing that surprised me going into my first grade 11 law class was how digestible the law can be once you actually start to break down like legal topics and principles. And it becomes like a lot less intimidating once you start to read about it and get some background information on why laws are the way that laws are, and you realize that practically, like they do make a lot of sense.
Right. Did you find it challenging? Did anybody here find it challenging when you first took your law class and you're like, wow, I don't understand what this is talking about? Or were you like, okay, this kind of makes sense?
Honestly, for me, it kind of made sense, especially the way that our curriculum was like structured. So, like
Mm,
in the beginning, like the first few weeks, the way that we kind of eased into it was starting with like the background of law and then like what law actually is before we got into like the specifics. So, I really like the way that it was structured.
that's great. How about you, Jal or Marwa? Did you find it challenging at first?
No, I found it pretty easy. I think with my teacher, yeah, he's like a really good teacher. He made it like really simple for me to understand. So really appreciating for that.
Yeah, how about you, Marwa?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people find law intimidating because when you go straight into looking at like the criminal code or the charter, it can be hard to understand. But when you look at the fundamentals first, then it's easier to see because those fundamentals extend to like every other part of law. So that's when I found it easy to understand. But you kind of just have to start from something that's easier to digest and then go on to the more complicated things.
Right. Well, here's another question for you all. How important do you think the teacher is in terms of helping you to understand all of these different legal topics? Joel, how about we start with you?
I think the teacher makes like a really big difference because they're basically like your entry point into law. Like if you're a hard teacher, you would like think law is like impossible to understand and you just drive yourself away from law. We have a teacher who actually puts like a lot of effort into making sure you understand the law. And if you don't understand it, how can you understand it? I think that's really important, especially when trying to understand something abstract like law.
How about you, Marwa?
I definitely think the teacher is super important because I think in any subject, a teacher can really make or break a class. I think, especially for a subject like law, it's not just about understanding, but also nurturing that interest and that passion. And if you have a teacher that doesn't really care per se, then maybe that could have a student losing interest in law. So, yeah, I think it's really important to have a good teacher.
And you, Zainab, what do you think about this issue?
Yeah, I would definitely agree with both of them. So for I took grade 11 law and grade 12 law, and both of my teachers were incredible. But my grade 12 t law teacher in particular, I really, really appreciate everything she did for our class. She was so great in helping everybody be more engaged. And so honestly, probably every single day we would have like lengthy class discussions about the cases that were in the news or what was in our textbook. And it honestly helps my interest in law go from probably like a 7 straight to like a 10.
Wow. That's great because we recently recorded a podcast with teachers, high school law teachers, to get their perspectives as well. So it's really interesting to hear what you all have to say too about your experiences in a high school law class, as well as your experiences working with really fun teachers who are engaging. So my next question for you all is this. If you knew someone who was in grade 10 and they were thinking about what electives they could take in the next year, what would you say to convince them to take a high school law class? So, Marwa, how about we go to you first?
I was actually in this position with my friend. She's in grade 10. And I convinced her to take grade 11 law, even though she's really scared of like speaking in class or kind of public speaking. But I convinced her because I think that the law class is not only fun because you get to learn about law, but you also learn like a lot of different skills. Again, law involves a lot of different subjects. So when you start learning about law, you learn a lot of things with it, and having those skills is important for anything. I think having a law class or at least a basic understanding of law under your belt helps you with any career you want to go into the future.
That's great. And Zainab, what would you say to someone who is thinking about taking law in grade 11 or in grade 12 and they were kind of on the edge and they don't know whether to do it or not?
I would honestly tell them that the law is not something to be scared of at all, and that it does have an intimidating reputation, but it's really not that bad at all. And that it's actually like one of the most powerful tools that we have to fight for justice and to protect our rights and, to create like the kind of equitable society that we all want to see. And being able to do that really can start from honestly just taking a grade 11 or 12 law course.
Yeah, and how about you, Joel?
I would tell them that you should definitely take law. I mean, law really impacts all aspects of your life, and then, like by knowing law, you could truly know what rights you have and what the police can do to you or not do to you. And I think that's really important. And well, law also has a lot of good career pathways. Like you choose to become a lawyer, which are like a great career. You could choose to like work as a government official. Like if you want to go into politics, you need law. So I think that law really opens a lot of opportunities for you.
Let's move on now to a different topic, which is the essays that you all wrote. So I read your essays and they were fantastic. And I mean, you all dealt with very interesting and very serious topics, like such as Bill 21, the decriminalization of drugs, intimate partner violence. I wanted to ask you all, how did you decide on the topic that you wanted to submit as part of this essay contest? So, Joel, how about we go back to you first?
I chose the decriminalization of the personal use of drugs because I was going to write an essay for my class, and at first it seemed really easy, like a straightforward essay where I argue that Canada should not decriminalize the personal use of all drugs because there's no reason to. It probably worsen the drug crisis. And I always found researching the effects of drug really interesting to me. So this would be like a great research journey for myself. But I'll actually end up arguing the complete opposite after doing more research. I found that really fun. But yeah, that's why.
Yeah, and we'll get to how you did your research later. But Mara, how about you? How did you decide on your topic?
I decided on my topic because it is not only personal to me and my family, but I think it speaks to a lot of other issues that we have in society. Like Bill 21 presents problems that are present in other aspects of law, not just in Canada, but in other places. And I thought it was really important to bring awareness about that. And I wanted to show why this is not only a problem for the people affected, but for all of society and how this kind of moves us backwards.
And Zainab, how did you choose your topic?
So selecting my topic was honestly a no-brainer for me. And so leading up to finding out about the essay competition, I had read, and I distinctly remember this. It was a global news article. And it was talking about how domestic violence was on the rise in Canada, which was not only surprising to me, but it was also a big concern as somebody who is passionate about women's rights. Um, and so I honestly thought that this would be such a good opportunity to like further flesh out my thoughts and ideas on the topic and then be able to explore like preventative measures to intimate partner violence.
Right. And how was the research process like for all of your essays? Have you ever written an essay like this before? Zainab, how about we go back to you first?
Yeah, so actually, I wrote an essay similar to this in my grade 11 law class. And I think the prompt was like a topic concerning Canadian law or something. And I remember I chose to do mine on the decriminalization of illicit drugs for personal use. Um, and so the structure of that essay was pretty similar to this one. But that's as far as like my prior experience in writing an essay of this nature goes.
And how about you, Marwa?
So I have written analytical and opinion-based essays or texts before because I like to write. And I had some previous knowledge on Bill 21 because I did a project on it in history. I've had debates with my teacher about it. So it was really a matter of expanding my knowledge and reading more articles and seeing like the arguments being made for it and how different sides perceive it so that I could form my argument.
And Jal, how about you?
So this was the first actual time I've written like a research heavy essay like this. So I have to thank my law teacher, Mr. Stone, for teaching me the process. So basically, what you do is like you take a list of a source, you like make a list of sources that you could possibly use for information, and you want to write a thesis that includes the three main points of the essay that you're going to write. And after that, you want to search through those sources for like nuggets of information, like you're mining for gold. When you find like useful information, you write these nuggets on a cue card, and then you note the source you got this nugget from, and then you just keep continue and you just keep like continuing searching for nuggets inside your sources, and at the end you have like a bunch of cue cards with like full of information that could help you write your essay. At the end I had about 50, and the next step was to like separate the nuggets depending on which point they argue best, and arrange them in a way where like they flow from one point to another. And then at the end you just have to fill in the words, and you can make like a really good essay where like each point flows into the next one, and it's like it's really well worded, and it's like it's perfect.
Yeah, that's a really interesting way of like visualizing how to write an essay. Like I feel like my strategy is also similar to you, Jaws. Like I can read something and then from that reading, I'll take away like a bunch of key points that I want to include. And those are like the nuggets that you were talking about. And usually when I would look at my list, it's all about like kind of putting the puzzle pieces together and like seeing how I can use all of this and transform it into a way that sounds cohesive and that's also argumentative and persuasive. So very interesting way of doing your essay, and I really appreciate that visualization. So when you all did your research for these essays or while you were drafting them, was there anything that you learned that stood out to you in this process? So Jal, how about we go back to you?
So the easiest was definitely writing the words between the information for the essay, since all you need to do was just find out which words sound the best. And the hardest, yeah. And the hardest part was definitely researching the information itself, since like most sources nowadays have like a paywall stopping your research.
Mhm.
And then another hard part was probably choosing how to separate it. Like so many points of information argue more than one topic. So you really need to like critically think on how you could use each point of information most effectively.
Right. And Mara, what did you learn through this process?
I honestly learned that there are a lot of problems in society that just continue because people who aren't directly affected aren't aware of that. So, something that was easy in writing my essay was my argument. I knew what I wanted to say and what I wanted to highlight. And probably the hardest part though was wording. So even though I know what I wanted to say, I had to be persuasive and make a strong point without sounding too personal because again, I'm trying to convince people about how this is a problem to like all of Canadian society and all of Canadian law and not just one singular person or one singular group of people. So I learned that it's important to highlight why it affects more than just one person.
And Zainab, how about you?
So I learned quite a bit about domestic violence in general as I was writing this essay. But one thing that came as a surprise to me, which retrospectively is probably kind of obvious, is the fact that DV is not limited to abusive interactions between two spouses. And it can also take place between like a mother and a son, or a mother and daughter, or like father and son. So that was surprising for me because in my head, I'd always thought of like domestic violence. Okay, that means like two spouses. But I think that it's like important to not only recognize that, but also like be able to acknowledge it and like open up that conversation around the dynamics that fall under domestic violence. Because I think it would help make a lot of survivors feel more comfortable with coming forward and seeking justice.
And since the essays were all about law and social change, this might be a very big question, but how do you all see law as being a vehicle for social change? Jal, how about we go back to you again?
So I learned that law and society are like directly linked. Like sometimes a society pushes for legal change, like with the decriminalization of marijuana, and other time law drives social change by changing how people in society act and perceive certain actions. Law forms or breaks stigmas, and stigmas directly affect society and lead to social change. So what's really important is that we are like electing lawmakers that push social change in the direction that is right to us, and through that we'll create social change that's perfect for our society.
And Marwa, how about you?
That definitely is a big question. I think law is a vehicle for social change because law has the power to shape society, not just because of what's legal or illegal or the basic things that people think of when they think of law, but because it really does form societal norms and how society functions or thinks. Law dates back to all kinds of things in anthropology. Like society started with law, and that shapes a bunch of ways of how people think and cultural norms and all kinds of things that law affects. So, because law affects all those things, changing the law is what can change those things. And those are such big changes. So, if done right, those can also be very good changes for the good of society as a whole.
Totally true. And Zainab, how about you?
I think that the solution for a lot of social issues that we're facing today are in the law. And so, like, whether that's like environmental issues or racial inequality or something of that sort, there's usually something that we can do relating to the law to mitigate like the negative effects of those issues. So, like, for example, we have like environmental protection acts or human right codes that are effective and significant in addressing these social issues. And so, in that sense, I think that the law is probably the best vehicle, so to speak, for social change.
Honestly, I'm very amazed by the three of you because if I were in your position back in high school, I was definitely not as cerebral or thoughtful about these things. So you guys have all been totally amazing. There's a reason why your essays were selected as part of this contest. But let's go back to a more casual conversation. And you can be honest with me. Who here is actually thinking about pursuing a career in law? Is anyone thinking about that?
Uh,
Yeah, definitely.
yeah. I know.
Yeah, okay, it's my backup plan.
Okay, so all three of you. Okay, that's great. Like a law being a lawyer specifically, or are there other avenues within the legal profession that you are all interested in? Jal, how about we go to you first?
So law is definitely an option for me because I love law and especially finding cases. So I would love to be a lawyer, but I
Hmm.
also really love neuroscience and learning about the brain, which is why my dream career is like a neurosurgeon. But law is definitely my backup plan.
Oh my God, those are like very diametrically opposed topics, like neuroscience and law. I mean, there's health law available. That's a sector of law that I find to be very interesting.
Yeah.
So you never know. I mean, there could be some sort of transfer of knowledge there too. Mara, how about you?
I do want to be a lawyer. I specifically want to be either a crown lawyer or, if not a crown lawyer, then a family lawyer. And that's specifically because even if I don't be a lawyer, I want a career in law to kind of help make a change. I feel like having a career in law can help you make those changes that you aspire to make, even from someone who's in high school and being this young. And also just because I want to expand my knowledge in a subject that I have really come to enjoy.
That's great. And Zainab, how about you?
So I definitely want to work in the legal field because I want a career where I can contribute to some of the causes that I'm passionate about, like such as advocating for victims of domestic violence. And I think that that can be best done through working in law. But as for like what exactly that's going to look like specifically in terms of like one career title or description, I'm not too sure. So right now I'm kind of still, in the water about what that's going to look like, but I know that I want to work in the legal field.
Yeah, that's really amazing because I think you've all taken really great steps forward to kind of go into it head first and learn about these topics that you're passionate about and writing about them. I think it's really good. But before we get into other things, we're going to do a small little lightning round of fun questions with everybody just to kind of cap off the episode on a lighter note. So I'm just going to ask a couple of questions and feel free to answer. You feel free to just shout your answers out. That's totally fine. But we'll go from there. All right. What is your favorite weekend activity?
Driving.
Driving? Like just like driving
Just drive.
on the highway or like
Just driving car. It's fun.
okay, like just driving on the street or like anywhere in particular?
Probably on the highway. That's the best part.
Okay. All right. Did you just get your license?
Yeah.
That's why. I see. But no, that's totally exciting. Okay, next question. What is your favorite TV show?
I really like Moon Knight if you watch Marvel shows.
Okay, I did watch Moon Knight. That was great. How would you rank it above, I mean, in terms of all the MCU shows?
I think it's honestly it might be my first or second favorite.
Okay, yep.
WandaVision is tied. I really liked WandaVision too.
Oh my gosh, you should talk to my best
Yeah.
friend Lauren. She loves those two shows to death. So, so
Oh,
she is in the same boat as you are.
Honestly,
And
not a
Zainab, how about
big
you?
TV person, but I watched Prison Break with my family a while back, and that was pretty good.
Oh my gosh, I feel like Prison Break is like one of those shows that every like high schooler
Yeah.
watches at some point or another. I remember when I was in grade 10, my friend was like, "Have you watched Prison Break yet?" And we watched the first episode in like the band
Yeah.
rehearsal room. That's like a very vivid memory. I only watched the first episode, so I don't know anything else that happens afterwards. But anyways, moving on. Favorite movie. This is kind of similar, but favorite movie. Does anybody
Megamind.
have a favorite movie?
Yeah.
Megamind. Okay, classic. Yep.
Probably the Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse movie.
Okay, that's great. When's the new one coming out? Do you know? The
I think it's
animated
coming out
one.
next year. It was supposed to come out last year, but it's coming out next year.
Yeah. And Mara, how about you?
I really love Coraline. And
Oh, classic. Love
yeah,
it.
and probably the Spider-Man movies as well, just all of them.
Do you have a favorite Spider-Man?
Um, I really like Andrew Garfield Spider-Man.
Okay. Yep. Yep. Okay, I see that. Yep, I agree. I like him too. All right. And okay, this is another question for you. What is your favorite high school class and why is it law? I'm just kidding. You don't have to tell me that. But what are you all planning to do for your undergrad if you're going to undergrad or if you're going to college? So what are your post-secondary plans at this point?
So my dream's definitely Bachelor of Health Sciences and McMaster because I really want to go into medicine.
Right.
Yeah.
I for my undergrad it will probably do something relating to legal studies, either here at Waterloo, which is near where I live, or I actually would love to study in the UK at Manchester.
Well, that's
Um,
cool. Yeah.
as for other classes, I really love music, so I love my
Oh my
music
gosh, I was
classes.
a music person too.
Yes. What instrument did you play?
I play the clarinet. What do you play?
I play the viola and I play violin.
Whoa! Oh my gosh, you're a strings person. Okay, that's great.
Yes.
We love that. We respect that.
I
And
am
Zainab, how about
going
you?
back and forth between criminology and forensic psychology. I haven't accepted either one yet just because I'm not sure, but I'm leaning towards criminology at Ontario Tech.
Oh, that's very cool. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for joining me here today. I think we had a lot of fun talking about your interests, but also about your essays and why high school law class is important. Before we end off, does anybody have any other things that they want to say to anyone who might be hesitant about learning about the law?
You should definitely take it.
Honestly, if like you're wondering whether you should take grade 11 law or not, just take it. Worst case scenario, you can drop the course, but at least give it a shot.
Oh yeah, I totally agree. I think anyone should give it a chance and find that it's actually a subject worth trying out even if you don't pursue it. It's honestly a really fun class and a really interesting subject. So if you're unsure, go for it. I bet that if you're interested in it at all, you're going to have a blast.
Yeah, for sure. Because no one in my law class actually hated law. Everyone had so much fun, especially the debates and the mock trials. They're the best part. You're gonna love law.
See, that's so amazing. Well, thank you everybody for joining me here today. I think we had a great time. Thank you so much for sharing your stories and your passions and your interests. I think other students who might be listening to this show might be more inclined to think about a career in law or taking a high school law class. So thank you so much for joining. And yay, I really liked this. It was great.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for tapping into this episode of Law Syrup. Law Syrup is produced by me, Herman Wong, and the Ontario Justice Education Network. For more information and for accompanying resources, check out ojen.ca and our show notes. See you next time.